Shalom, Yasharallah. All praises to the Most High. Yah. So I have a new project that's out right now. It's called Earthseed. And I've been recently putting up some old content that connects to the project because I released the project exclusively on Bandcamp and recently uploaded it onto all streaming sites. And it's timely, like the project Earthseed, when it first was actually made, was coming out of the pandemic. And now we're 5 years in. We're 5 years in from the pandemic from 2020. And I think it's interesting where we're at within society. You know, recently, as of yesterday, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Regardless of your political opinions on who he is and how he moved and how he operated and how you feel about him, it's an important pinnacle for us to all recognize within this, because we're back in a cycle of assassinations. We're back in a cycle of people strongly subscribing to an ideology and being so much indoctrinated within that ideology that it comes to a point of bloodshed. And I do believe that we're at a point of civil war within our society. It's been prophesied. Who are you? Where do you stand within the reality of what we're currently dealing with? That's a bigger question for you personally to deal with. See, we get caught up in religious constructs, political constructs, ideologies, all of these different things that has us believing that there's only one way or the other. And based off of your belief system, that does have truth in it, but there's layers to belief and knowing. The thing about knowing is knowing has to do with self-discovery. Knowing has to do with trials and tribulations and error, and from that error, finding out a better truth that fits for things that can always be explained. And right now, I feel like it's an important time for us to get out of the ideologies of just believing and start knowing. We can resort to violence. That's something that's on the table, obviously, with the whole situation that actually happened recently with Charlie being assassinated. Violence is on the table, and it might be one of the answers. I seen a post recently from one of my young Akis who said that it's not a time for praying. Well, there's a saying within Torah, within the Bible, it says faith without works is dead. See, the thing about it is we're falling away from actual spiritual practices, higher ascension, more enlightenment, and we're going into a primal root of the ways we move and operate. A lot of Earthseed and like what I developed within that project, it had a lot to do with my awakening, my reawakening. I've had a variety of different awakenings since then, but within that particular awakening, I went back to the Bible when I was already rooted in very spiritual practices. When I'm talking about Ifa, when I'm talking about meditation, astral projection, all these different things that played within my walk, then went back into the Bible, right? Back into the Torah and learned it deeper and actually understood the principles outside of religious construct, which were the most beneficial. In the project, you hear me talk about Yahushua, talk about Jesus. I call him Yahushua because then I found the lie, how it was manipulated. And the lie was one of the things that kept me away from the Bible because of all the religious constructs. But you get outside of the religious constructs of what the book really is, you're talking about a book of principles and laws. You're talking about a book of personal ascension. You're talking about individuals who went through their own personal ascensions within their journeys. And we're able to look at these books of our ancestors, and learn from their mistakes, their victories, their wisdom. It's not easy. And I think the biggest thing that we have to do within spiritual practices is challenge ourselves, even within the book of the Torah, of the Bible, of the Quran, all of these different things that we have strong ideologies and vindictions, we have to look at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that we have a system that is made to divide and conquer us. And if we continually operate in the divide and conquer aspects of what this book is, we'll be limited in the ways that it actually works. Any religion could be manipulated by the convictions of men. That's why it's important to come out of religion and come into spirituality. There's truth in religion, but it doesn't mean that it's absolute truth. And the more that we do our own self-work and our own self-discovery, the more that we can look at the nasty parts of ourselves and be willing and able to grow outside of the narratives that have been put onto us. Right now, it's an important time for us as a nation, as a global citizen, to challenge everything, but to go more inward than fight one another. That's going to be the true thing that evolves us into our next. And if we're able to do that as individuals, then we worry less about one another. This year, I've had more battles than I've ever had in my life. This has been the hardest year maybe in my life with everything that I'm dealing with. And within those battles, I've learned more about myself, and I'm still going through a battle right now. I'm in the midst of one right now. The one thing that I will say is I don't look at trials as defeat. I look at them as lessons. In this 2025, the thing about the numerology of this year, it adds up to the number 9, which is completion. It's also the shedding off of old ideologies, old ideas, and embracing something new. 2026 is going to be a year of new, depending on how you approach it. 10 is new. 10 isn't easy. Evolution isn't easy. I had this conversation with my daughter, who is 9 right now, and a lot of the transitions and changes and people that she is seeing leave her life right now are important, because she has reached a age of understanding. She still has a lot of growing to go. The thing that makes her genius is that she understands that there's still a lot of growth for herself to happen that she still has to do. A lot of the time we can't admit that as individuals. If she can admit that at a young age, the ability for her growth is limitless. And me being in my 40s now, I understand that I don't know everything. I don't know anything. And that's one of my strengths, is that I'm open to learn, and the Most High has been teaching me. I went into this year asking the Most High to teach me, be willing to learn. And some of the lessons that I'm learning this year have been the hardest lessons that I've ever had to learn. So I'm embracing it, but it's not easy. And then within that, I know that I have to let go of the things that I've been accustomed to. Businesses that have been, ways that I've been able to move and navigate. I have to trust the Most High. And right now we are in a time that's going to get worse before it gets better. The economy and everything that we're dealing with is going to get worse before it gets better. And I think that's one of the most important reasons it's important for us to know who we are within our Creator, know who we are within ourselves, know who the Most High is within us, and be able to grow and evolve in that, because society isn't getting better. In fact, the thing about fear is you see the true reality of somebody and who they really are within fear. You start seeing envy. You start seeing that jealousy. You start seeing anger. You start seeing their insecurities, which makes envy, jealousy, and anger. And like right now, at my age, I'm embracing my transition in becoming an elder, my transition in becoming a leader. And I'm embracing love from all, even when people are giving me hate. And I've gotten a lot of hate this year. So I say all that to say it's time for our evolution, and it's time for transition. And the thing about an assassination is the ideology of that person still reverberates. So regardless if you agree with that ideology or not, He was somebody who was very influential on a younger demographic of people who are now very indoctrinated within the things that he was teaching. The thing about it now is it's not about battle. It's about turning inside ourselves and transitioning ourselves and learning more about who we are within ourselves. Having true ascension, battling constructs and ideologies, rejecting the things that have been put onto us and embracing the way that the Most High has made us and what assignment he's put us onto. I say all that to say is we got a long journey. And the more that the Civil War, this divide and conquer mentality comes about, you're going to have to choose who you are within yourself in order to grow to who you truly are to become. All praises to the Most High Yah. Bless up to the chosen ones. Subscribe, like onto my YouTube page. And the other thing that I will say is Earthseed is my project that I have right now that's streaming on all sites. It's my personal spiritual journey, me going through Christianity. And I'll be straight up, I'm not a Christian at this point. Not to say I don't believe in the Creator, and not to say that I don't believe in Yahushua, who the world calls Jesus. But it's deeper than religion at this point. So all praises to the Most High Yah. Bless up, bless up.